So we'll start with
Mr. Alejo?
Mr. Alejo, and I see Secretary of State here. You're here to make some comments too? Oh, for Lorena's bill. Okay, fantastic. Nice to see you, Assembly Member.
See you.
And I can't believe you brought Tony Madrigal here. That's already a count against you. And we should just say we're starting as a subcommittee because we don't have a quorum yet, but we will immediately call quorum when quorum is present. And I assume, Jody, you're able to call the members. Okay, thank you. So, member, you may proceed. This is item number 7, AB 1504.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I come before you to urge your support for my bill AB 1504, which would allow an additional rural county and an urban county to participate in the existing all-mail ballot elections pilot program. The two counties being added under the bill will be Monterey County in my district and Sacramento County, both willing participants in this program. The purpose of this bill is to gather additional data that can be reported back to the legislature regarding the impact of all mail ballot elections. The current pilot program has a sunset date of already January 1st, 2018, a date that we will not be extending. And I believe that the addition of these two counties will aid the current pilot program by broadening the statewide analysis. Studies show that all mail ballot elections will help increase voter participation by providing voters the convenience of automatically receiving a ballot in the mail. In recent elections, more than 80% of voters cast their ballots by mail in some cases, and given the record low 18.3 voter turnout in the recent 2014 statewide primary election, that was the lowest since 1946. California is certainly facing a democracy crisis when it comes to civic participation of its voters, and all mail elections offer the opportunity to turn that around. In addition to boosting civic participation, the bill will allow participating counties to achieve cost savings in their departments. Yolo County, for example, achieved a 43% reduction in cost in 2013. I know there was a recent opposition letter received yesterday, but the groups signed on to the letter, and the issues raised were completely absent. There was no opposition to the bill that created this program, which is Bill AB 413 by former Assemblymember Yamada. And then there was additional bill by Assemblymember Mullen that just added San Mateo County. We're not trying to change the existing program. All we're saying is we just want to add 2 additional counties to participate in the program that already exists for Yolo and San Mateo County. With that, we have some witnesses speaking support, Mr. Chairman. We ask for your support.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I guess it is now. Jill Levine, Sacramento County Registrar of Voters, and I'd like to kind of give you a couple of data from Sacramento County. Right now, we are 60% of permanent vote by mail, so our voters are already wanting to vote by mail. We've had several small elections this year. In April, we replaced the Sacramento City District 6 representative, and the turnout was only 26%. And of those that did vote, 76 voted by mail. And these were polling place elections. In May, we did a replacement of a Twin Rivers board member. And at that time, the turnout was 18%. 85% of those that did vote by mail. Then we move on to the Sacramento City streetcar election, which was an all-mail ballot. And at that point, 35% voted by mail, with a 35% turnout. So you can definitely see that, as Secretary Padilla has said in the past, if a voter receives a ballot in their hands, they are more likely to vote it. A 35% turnout compared to the 18% turnout is huge. So we would like to have this program, this pilot program, be able to expand and get some more data points for these pilot programs. And I can tell you our outreach is very robust. For the Sacramento City streetcar election, we worked with the city and made sure that voters knew that they were all voting by mail. All our ballot materials in 3 languages, the 3 languages required by the federal government. So regardless if a voter needs it or not, they're going to get all 3 languages. AB 1504 is extremely limited. It can't be a statewide, nor a special for a state office or legislature or Congress. So these small little elections that have the lower turnout, this is a perfect fit to be able to do some study. So I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Claudio Valenzuela, Monterey County Elections, Registrar of Voters there. And I just want to mention a couple more things. I think Jill said it very well. We are, in Monterey, we are at 68% vote by mail right now. But also, we heard that there were some concerns about the availability of materials in the target languages, the federal mandated languages and also the state mandated language. I have to tell you that all the ballots are bilingual, Spanish, English, in Monterey County, as well as the voter registration forms, the voter guides, the provisional envelopes, the envelopes, the vote by mail envelopes, all that, the voting instructions, the signage, everything is bilingual. In terms of outreach, we have been extremely proactive in Monterey County. Last couple of years ago, we hired a permanent person to do outreach, bilingual outreach. We're using HAVA funds to create materials that are evergreen, such as PSAs, public service announcements, posters. We have an enormous amount of bilingual posters in all the buses. And we just are targeting the communities, the language communities, as well as the disability community, with the message of inclusion and accessibility. We routinely communicate with these communities to seek input and also bilingual poll workers for these precincts that need bilingual assistance. So, needless to say, our reach campaigns will continue with or without this bill, but that's routine for us.
I appreciate those comments because they do speak to some of the concerns that have been raised by this letter that I just received. Are there any witnesses in support of this bill? Yes, ma'am.
Julian Navarro here on behalf of the Urban Counties Caucus and strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who wants to speak in opposition to the bill? Can we maybe make space at the table, one of you? Yeah. I think it's just one person. Thank you.
Members of the committee, my name is Raul Macias. I'm a voting rights attorney with the ACLU of California. And for this bill, I'm also here on behalf of Asian Americans Advancing Justice and Disability Rights California. Mm-hmm. And I do apologize that we got our letter in late. But nevertheless, we do respectfully oppose AB 1504 unless it is amended to include the same standards for language and disability access, including in-person voting opportunities, as well as the outreach requirements that are required in San Diego's vote by mail pilot. And I understand some of this outreach and maybe this planning is already happening, so maybe there shouldn't be an objection to that, to some of these outreach requirements. But we'd like to see it held to the same standards that were established last year by AB 1873, and our offices worked closely with Assemblymember Gonzalez and the San Diego Registrar on that bill. Many voters with disabilities and people with language access needs do rely on in-person voting. People with disabilities may need to use accessible voting machines to cast a ballot, or people who are blind or who have manual dexterity disabilities may also rely on voting machines to cast a paper ballot. Because paper ballots are inaccessible to them. AB 1873 requires substantial opportunities to vote in person, including a vote center for every 10,000 registered voters. And in contrast, this bill would only require one polling place per city. So in a city like Sacramento, you're talking about the difference between one in-person polling place on election day under this bill versus under the AB 1873 model. That's 20. It would be about 21 in-person voting sites. And remember, 1873 is also, it's sort of been the basis for the model that SB 450, this vote center model, is looking at. And so if the idea is to gather data on using vote by mail in combination with these in-person opportunities, maybe we should be incorporating these AB 1873 requirements into this pilot. And just lastly, in regards to those other pilots, I mean, we're happy to see the AB 1873 requirements added to those too, if that's, we weren't a part of those discussions for when they were initiated, and
right.
We would like to see more in person, so as a safeguard for language access and disability access
Right.
for any of those pilots.
Well, let me, are there any other witnesses in opposition So let me then turn to the author and or any of the witnesses in support and just assume you've had the opportunity to review the letter. Can you, some of the issues I think have been addressed to a certain extent by the testimony before, as has been mentioned by the witness, but can you address some of the core concerns that are in the letter and give us your response?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think, like we mentioned earlier, we're not trying to change the existing programs that are already in place for Yolo and San Mateo counties. We're adding 2 additional counties, but with the understanding it's going to be for a very short period of time. It's going to get sunsetted in 2018, so we're going to have about 2 to 3 years to look at those 2 counties, these 2 additional counties that sign on. The report's going to come back to the legislature to know how these programs have worked. In addition, what Monterey County has done is it's contracted with UC Berkeley that's going to do the thorough data analysis to report back to the legislature. They did a recent report for Yolo County that showed the impact that it did have in that county. We're going to do the same. So with the understanding that it's going to, because the original bill had trying to extend the deadline out for several more years, we decided to push that back and just keep the original sunset date so we could just look at it, how it's working for these counties for the next 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what would, what would be your sort of gut argument for this bill? Why are you pursuing this bill?
Well, because first of all, in Monterey County, we think that it would certainly help with voter participation and turnout. It's a rural county. We're going to be able to, with these 2 additional counties, give the legislature a better insight how these programs work for an urban county and a rural county. And certainly in this rural area, I think people being able to get their ballots and have more time to consider what they want to, who they want to vote for, what they want to vote for, and be able to mail those in with, I think, about at least a month's time. I think it's a better program. We want to study that and be able to report back how that's worked. But in addition, I think Monterey County has done some additional step. It has a new vendor with some new technologies. They're able to track the ballots as they go out. They have a better working relationship with the post office, which has barcodes that are able to track out and be more automated in terms of making sure they get sent out on time. All these improvements have happened in Monterey County, but being able to enact this program would, I think, really help. The bottom line is really help increase voter participation during these elections where often we get the worst turnouts.
And this is for local elections. In particular.
Local elections.
Yeah. Questions from the vice chair?
As far as, I'm moving these to vote by mail in these test pilot programs, I'm fundamentally in support of. I had not thought of the issue when it comes to people with disabilities. How do you perceive taking on that challenge to ensure that everybody's vote is counted?
Well, we have DREs. These are the Sequoia Edge 2 machines that are purchased with HAVA money to provide accessibility. We have a limited amount of those machines used at each precinct due to the top to bottom review, so we cannot use them all, but we do have at least one per precinct, and we intend to continue to use those machines as well as in the centers that we have to open in, and as well as our office. That's probably the best accessibility, and of course, vote by mail. That in itself is a good solution. Farther than that, I think, and I think it's farther from what this bill is going to do. We need better solutions, but that's for a different testimony. I think we still are far from serving the communities, the disability community.
So when you say you have one per precinct, at first I thought you meant it would actually be in the precinct. Are you saying it will be in the precinct, or are you saying that you just have a quantity of one per precinct at a central location?
So currently in our current elections, we have one per one consolidated precinct, one polling place. When we go to this model, if we are allowed to do these, we will still have in the limited amount of polling places that will be open.
And so I'm still a little bit confused. So if I'm blind and I want to vote, so where would I have to go? Would I go to the typical precinct place I've gone over time, or do I have to go to a different place?
No, you will go to location. One of the locations accessible to vote, and vote just like you do today in a polling place.
But that's not quite answering my question. Is it my precinct that I go to, or do I have to go to someplace other than my precinct?
Yeah, you would not go to your precinct. You will go
Okay.
to a voting center open for you to open. These will be extensively publicized, by the way. We do that as routinely every time we change a polling place, which is important to us to make sure everybody knows where they are. We even put people at the door directing the voters to the correct polling place. We put advertisement in the paper. We send them postcards.
There's no doubt in my mind that you're going to go to great lengths to make sure it's advertised. I guess my new concern is every precinct I've ever walked, because of my career or somebody else's career, have been walkable. And so if I lived in that precinct, right now, I could walk there and do it. If it's across town, then I'm going to have to find transportation there. And clearly, I'm not driving myself. And if I don't have bus services, I don't want this to be turned into a poll tax, right? I mean, I think that every person that's qualified to vote should have a right to vote. And I'm concerned that we may be carving out people, and I know this is a little off center, but having served on budget, frequently those who don't have a voice are the ones that get cut from our budget first. And it's not purposeful, it's just the nature of the beast. So I'm worried if they lose their voice, they're going to suffer in our state budgets. So is there a kind of a compromise solution? Do we have any idea how many folks are in this category? Would it be capable to offer them some sort of bus service?
First of all, our office is open 29 days before an election with the accessible equipment. So the voter that would need that accessibility prior to Election Day has 29 days, to come to our office. And the bill does require at least one per city, and then does give us the option of opening more. And so we'll be very sensitive to the needs of voters in the area. How many people use the equipment? Last November in Sacramento County, for the entire county, there was a little over 300 people that used the accessible unit. So, and there was over 500 polling places.
Well,
So,
my thoughts are, though, if the person can't get there, whether it's financially or whether there's not public service to get there, if there was a provision in the bill that allowed them to call and ask for assistance to get to the polling place so that they could vote, I'd be much more comfortable with this. I was good to go until I heard that testimony, and it really impacted me, because I mean, the reason why I like what you're trying to accomplish is I want to increase the number of people voting. I want to give more access, not less access. And people who have voted in the past, I don't want them to feel like they've been cut out of the process. So, Assemblyman, I wish you'd take a strong look at this and see if there isn't a way that we could add an amendment to the bill that would allow those people who can't afford or don't have access to public transportation, that they're not having to pay $100 for a cab there and a cab back to vote, because that would be essentially a poll tax.
Well, Senator, my commitment to you is try to work to see how we could address those as the bill moves forward. But certainly, I think having persons with any disabilities being able to get a ballot a month in advance and be able to vote in the comfort of their own home, I think in the end it's going to further the goals that we're talking about rather than limiting them. And I think those counties, as more have transitioned to having a higher percentage of vote by mail registered voters, I think the turnout is increasing. We want to do these in these really low turnout elections that are not during the primaries or general elections. These are elections where it might be a local school board, community college trustee, a water district, and you get the worst turnout than we had bad during the primary in general, but during these elections, we have less than 20% of voters coming out and participating. We think that with this change, it would further those goals of actually making it easier for folks, whether they have disabilities or other limitations, whether geographic limitations, to be able to create or participate in choosing their locally elected representatives and voting on issues that are important to them.
Yeah, I think having 29 days is great. I don't think that that solves the problem of people that are on the poverty line who having to pay for a cab or pay for Uber or whoever they use means that they're going to have to change their meal plan for that month. So I'm just worried about taking the poorest of the poor and cutting them out of the process when they should be front and center. That's the concern. So the timeline, while it's helpful, it doesn't solve the financial woe. For those, when we're talking about such small populations, I'm just wondering if you couldn't add something that said, if the registrar, if they were in this income level and they called the registrar, we would arrange to have them picked up and brought to the nearest polling place where they could vote, as opposed to cutting them out of the process. And they could be high propensity voters right now because they can walk to the end of their street and place that vote. And now we're taking that away. So I don't want to lose people as we're trying to gain new people. I don't want to lose people out of the back of the bus.
Well, let me follow up with you after today, follow up with you to see how we could address that. But also in terms of the income issues, I think there's no greater accessibility than having 29 days to vote and simply fill out their ballot and take as long as they want to in their own homes and then put a stamp on the envelope and send it off. I mean,
Well,
that would certainly...
If they're blind,
yeah.
they may not know where to check that box. That's the
Right, and
concern
the-
I have.
and-
You're going to learn that this is the one committee where I have no reluctance in spending taxpayers' money, because I believe that people have died for the right to vote, and that we should do everything we can to protect it. And so typically, when it comes to financial issues on this committee, I'm willing to pay for their gas, because I think it's that important. So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Well, let me do two things. Let me first, the chair notices the presence of a quorum, so let me first turn to the clerk to establish a quorum.
Allen,
Here.
Anderson,
Anderson?
Here.
Hancock, Hertzberg, Lou.
Okay, so we have a quorum. I wanted to just kind of follow up on this concern and say, okay, there's a couple reasons why I think the points that have been raised are very well taken. I'm less concerned about them for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's so limited in time. I also think that we've got a pretty substantial and exciting electoral reform package that we're all working on right now that will fundamentally address all of these key issues with the vote center model, with an all-mail, all vote by mail, all mail model, but also this ubiquitous vote center model. All that being said, it's making me think, it's particularly since part of what you're trying to do here is to study and learn within this limited context. And by the way, we should also mention these are just local elections. We're not talking about the statewide. I hear the concern that's there. I see the fact that 1873 has one vote center for every 10,000 registered voters. In this case, in the case of Sacramento, for example, it'd only be one for 215,000 registered voters. What if we were to, at least require a polling site for one in, let's say, 50,000 voters? It would be significantly higher than what's currently required under 1873, but at least in a big city like Sacramento, provide for a little bit more access. And I don't think I don't think increase costs very significantly and create a significantly more access, kind of along the lines of some of the concerns that have been raised and that have been raised by both the vice chair and also the witness in opposition. How would you feel about that sort of change, Assemblyman?
Well, not having been able to look at it and just off the cuff here, trying to think through it, open to talking to you.
The idea being, so right now, the way that it works, the way that your bill is written, is that there would only be one a polling center per city or county if it were, unincorporated, if we're looking at unincorporated territory, conceivably. So, along the lines of the concerns that have been raised, there may be a little bit of an access issue. part of what we're addressing in SB 450 is this hybrid model of all mail, but also these polling centers that are available. In your case, you're talking about pretty low turnout elections. So I don't know that we necessarily need to have the ubiquitous presence of polling centers. But at the same time, I do hear this concern about a city of 215,000 only having one polling center for blind folks, for folks who may have some sort of access challenge with using the only vote by mail model. I'm wondering whether we could say for those elections where a jurisdiction has over 50,000, we'd have, we'd make sure to have a polling center for every 50,000 registered voters. Does that make sense? So in a city like Sacramento, that would mean we'd have 5 because it's over 200,000. But in most places, it would still just be a 1. Now, I'm happy if you want to, to move the bill forward and then have us kind of work out the details in coordination with members so that we don't have to hold up your bill.
Yeah.
That's my, obviously the members can decide to vote however they would like.
Yeah, I would appreciate that, being able to work with you, Mr. Chairman, and seeing how we could fine-tune the bill before it even gets on to Senate floor to make sure we address those concerns. But I'll get out today because it's kind of hard not,
I understand.
off the cuff, not analyzing what this
understand.
means for the 2 counties. But certainly we're open to discussing and fine-tune the bill if that's what you would like to see.
Senator, do you have any comments or thoughts? Or?
Does this go to appropriations after, or goes right to the floor? Oh, my goodness, okay, well, you better settle that out before it goes to the floor.
This did not.
We can amend it before it
can
gets
amend it
on the floor, yeah.
too.
Yeah. That's our commitment to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And I'm happy to have the vice chair as part of that process too. Okay, so
So I'll move the bill with the
understanding
understanding that amendments will happen on the Senate floor?
at the very least.
Before taking up, to the
Yeah.
Senate floor.
Right.
Okay, all right. So there's a motion with that understanding, and as I say, I'm happy to engage with both. Obviously, with everyone who's engaged and spoken on this, because I think ultimately what you're doing is a good thing, and so with that, I will support the bill, and I'm committed to working with the vice chair if he wants to support it today. So, Secretary, if you call the roll.
Motion is due pass. Allen?
Aye.
Allen, I. Anderson?
Aye.
Anderson, I. Hancock? Hertzberg? Lou?
Aye.
Lou, I.
All right, so that has the requisite 3 votes, but we will certainly keep it open for Senator Hertzberg. We should mention for those in the audience, congratulations, Assemblyman. Looking forward to working with you on this.